The Panther Install Series presents installing the T5 Electro Steer. This installation only requires two tools, a 9/16 and 1/2 inch open-ended wrenches. If you need to cut the threaded rod, then you will also need a hacksaw, but that'll be installation dependent. Now let's join Scott on the install.
Alright, today we're installing the Panther T5 Electro Steer on this Mercury 15 Pro kicker. First thing you're going to want to do, obviously after unboxing all the product, is you're going to want to mount your unit to the tilt tube. First thing you want to do, you'll notice this is tight up here. Go ahead and back it off about halfway. And then when we go to put it on the tilt tube itself, you'll be tightening it this way so it'll close up the gap, and that'll make mounting quite a bit easier. Alright, so before we put our T5 on the tilt tube, you're going to want to make sure the cable's actually extended out. So go ahead and run it out a little bit. If you need to use the wiring that comes with it, go ahead and do that. Otherwise you can hook two jumper wires up to your battery just to run it out. That'll make it easier when you put the drive rod on. Alright, so we're going to mount our T5 to the tilt tube, the threaded portion of the tilt tube. You can see that this threaded portion is actually fairly long, and we do provide a large jam nut for this reason. So go ahead and thread that on first. Go ahead with it all the way on, but you don't need to tighten it there. And then we'll insert the cable into the tilt tube until it sits flush. While you got some pressure onto here, I'm actually using my backhand for that pressure. You're going to go ahead and tighten it up. And you'll notice that both sides are getting tight. This side's tight and this side's tight at the same time. There's left-handed threads on this side, so they close together when you tighten this whole thing up. The jam nut's there for mounting position, so once you get this tight on there, you can go ahead and roll this right over, set it right on the transom here if you'd like. Otherwise we can just spin this right back and leave it straight down. That seems to be a proper mounting location for a lot of people like that. So we'll go ahead and make sure this is tight. And then we'll back our jam nut up here, just keep her from moving around. Alright, so now that we have our T5 mounted to the tilt tube, we're going to go ahead and put our drive rod on. But before we do that, we're actually going to install this tilt tube nut and gasket. There's a little O-ring sweeper in here that this just threads right onto your tilt tube. And this is going to help sweep the moisture away so you can keep any moisture outside of that unit. That's all there is to that. And then we'll go ahead and put our drive rod in, thread that, just put that through the hole. And then when you go to thread this onto that cable end that you had sticking out, you got to apply a little bit of pressure and just go ahead and turn it up, and it should catch the threads and tighten right up for you. Alright, so when threading this in, you're going to want to reach all the way to the end. You'll see how that's tight now. And then go ahead and back it off about a half a turn. That's going to allow it to play when everything's in motion. You don't want it all the way tight. That can bind up and hurt things. You want it to be able to flow freely. It is going to pitch a little bit when you do turn your motor. So you do want to leave that with just a little bit of play. So the next step from there is we're going to take our ball stud, or excuse me, the ball stud out of the quick connect. Go ahead and get our lock washer and our nut off of there. And you'll notice that this is slotted and it's flat, slotted side. I like to put the ball stud into that side, and then it kind of holds it in place, and you put your lock washer and the nut on the bottom. And then we'll go ahead and grab a wrench and tighten that up. Alright, so now that we've got this hand tight, we're going to take our 9/16 wrench and go ahead and tighten it the rest of the way so that lock washer engages. You can see I just flipped it over there. Makes it a little easier for tightening things down. Give it a good snug. You don't got to get crazy with it. Just make sure that lock washer engages. Alright, so now that we have our drive rod in, ball stud mounted to that, we're going to go ahead and put our other ball stud on the motor. And for that you would use we send these along with the T5, and basically how that would work is you put your ball stud down through here, and then you would attach this up onto the motor. Something like this. You want to bear in mind that some of these motors are different. This one actually has cabling running through this, so you want to be careful not to drill any holes through cabling. That's obviously a bad thing. You don't want to do that. Because this motor actually has the steering attachment bracket installed, as you can see here, the Mercury ones, you can buy these from Quicksilver. mercury. You can find them online, or even your local dealer might be able to get it. We're going to use that instead. So we will go ahead and take the lock washer and nut off our ball stud. And for this application, I'm going to mount it with the ball stud pointing down. You can see how I did that there, ball stud pointing down through the hole. Put your lock washer on. You want to make sure you have that lock washer on there, otherwise this thing can fall apart, vibration. If it's not locked on there, you don't want to lose that in the water. So we'll go ahead and get our 9/16 wrench on this nut here. And then we'll use our 1/2 inch on the ball stud to hold it tight while we're tightening this up. Snug her down real good. Doesn't have to be crazy, but you can see that the lock washer is engaged. That's what you're looking for. And then from there we'll go on and measure for our threaded rod. Alright, so now that we have our drive rod in, ball studs are on, the brackets, T5's in, we're going to go ahead and hook this up. We've got our relay pack temporarily hooked up to the battery, so we just plug the lead from the relay pack into the lead for the T5 unit. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to run the drive rod all the way out, and then we are going to point our motor toward the end of the drive rod. And then what we're going to do from there, now this is specifically for the threaded rod installation. So you run your drive rod all the way out, point your motor so the front end is toward the drive rod, and then we're going to measure from one ball stud to the other to get our measurement for the threaded rod. Alright, so now that we have our motor turned toward the end of the drive rod and the drive rod fully extended, we're making our measurement for the threaded rod, and that's the connecting rod that's going to go between the two. So it comes with a split loom on there. Go ahead and take that off, and then what you're going to do is put the jam nut that we supply onto the threaded rod. Go ahead and slide that on a little farther, and then we'll take our quick connect, thread that on, and then we'll connect that to our motor. So you want to thread this all the way in. Might take an extra minute or so there, but go ahead and do it. Run her all the way down. Alright, so that's tight. So we'll go ahead, get rid of our loom, and we're going to connect this up to the ball stud on the motor itself. So then all you do for that is you just slide the collar back, drop it in the hole, and let the collar close. Alright, so now that we have our quick disconnect threaded onto our rod, connected to the ball stud on the motor, we've got our other quick connect connected to the drive rod, and then we laid our threaded rod up over this. So the threaded rod, the threads inside this stop about where the spring is. So all you're going to want to do is make note, and what I'll do is just hold my thumb here. You can grab a Sharpie, make a little mark, and that's where we're going to cut. Alright, now that we know our mark, this is where we're going to cut. So a nice tech tip to do, take your other jam nut that we provide, thread it on the rod past the point where you're going to cut. That way when you cut through, you can back this off. It'll clean the burrs and take the thread back to where it needs to be. Then you can just hit it with a little bit of a file, clean that up before you put it on your quick disconnect. Alright, so we got our cut made. Obviously we've got our the other quick connect started on there already. We've got our jam nut backed off. So the threads were nice and clean. We put that in there, and you'll note that it's kind of difficult to tighten these down with just your hands. You can use one of the ball studs, so you could pop one out, or just leave it out before you're done, before you install it, and put it down in there, and that'll actually give you something to grab onto. Otherwise you can just use a little star washer or a star wrench like I've got. A little Allen wrench would work fine. And you just put it in there, and what I'll actually do is I'll just grab my pliers, because the middle of the rod we won't worry about the threads, so we'll go ahead and just grab the middle so it's nice and tight, put pressure on there, tighten her up, and then we can connect it. Alright, so now that our quick connect is tight, we got both ball studs on. We'll go ahead and attach the one side and the other. It's kind of hard to see upside down, but we'll try and do our best. There you go. So your rod's on, connected, everything's connected, and then we can go ahead and take our loom back again, and then we'll just hold this up to get a cut on that. And then we'll cut this. And then we'll go ahead and thread this back on. Not thread it on really, just press it on there. It helps to start at one end and just push it up on like so. It cleans it up a bit, keeps the debris off your threads, and that's it. Then we can go ahead and give it a test run. All right, so now we have everything installed. The rods are all connected, quick connects are there, loom is on, wiring's all ran through. We'll give it a test run just to see how it all works. We've got our 2-button switch here. There is a wireless option available for this as well. Check the website for that. So we'll go ahead and give her a push and it'll turn. Runs good that way. And back. We'll give her another run. And you'll note that this does flop a bit there. That's intended to do that. So we go ahead and run it out and then back. That's just so the forces at work don't hurt anything. It'll just play like it needs to. All right, so during our test fit and the test run, the first run of it, I did notice that this rod didn't have enough clearance on this motor. That's a good example for you guys to know at home. When you're putting these in, you can see when we run it all the way over, we start to catch here. So we don't have enough room to make that clearance there. So what we actually have is we've got a kit set for that. It's the ZP kit. Basically, it's going to extend up this ball stud to give you some more room so you can get everything to flow freely. And then we're going to go ahead and get that installed for you here right now. So we'll run this back the other way, disconnect our rod. We're going to take our ball stud off. Which you just need the 1 wrench for that. So we'll go ahead and take this off. We're going to take our nut and washer, leave that to the side. And in this kit, we've got our spacer, our bolt, and lock washer. The bolt and lock washer are going to go underneath. Take your ball stud out. Bolt and lock washer go underneath and through. Excuse me, let's flip this over. We're going to do it this way. We're going to go here. And tighten this in. So drop your spacer down in the flat slot. Turn your bolt until it's tight. So we've got our spacer on there. You can go ahead and thread your ball stud right into the spacer. Tighten that down. And then we'll connect our threaded rod again. So this is going to give us just the clearance that we need to let everything run freely. And you can see there's no more binding up here. That gets it down out of the way so everything can flow free and back the other way. It might seem kind of strange that this does come down and move a bit here. That is for a purpose. The forces at work here when everything's turning, if you were to have it all the way tight, things could get damaged. You can break your quick connects. You don't want to do that. It's easy enough just to leave everything just loose. With your drive rod, leave that loose and just kind of let it roll. It won't hurt anything, and that's how it's designed to work. So, and you can see now it's moving freely both sides. Because of these quick disconnects, you can tilt your motor up and down. In this case, we do have centering straps on this motor. So when in doubt, be careful. We'll just take this rod right off before tilting the motor up. We can set it right down here. You want to take that off before you trailer your boat, and you also want to take that off before running your main engine. Because when you're running your main engine and trailering, this motor can have the tendency to flop back and forth. That'll put extra pressure on all your linkage components and the motor, as well as the cable and the spool inside your T5. So it's better, just when in doubt, go ahead and take that off. You can use your lock your motor into place so that doesn't move around. But just take it off just for safe reasons. You don't want to break anything when you're out on the water trying to go fishing for the day.